Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about men that a lot of people overlook. Men don't just wake up one morning and decide to say, "I love you." It ain't a switch we flip, it's a process we walk through. See, a man's heart is like a house with 3 locked doors, and he opens them one at a time. And when you understand these stages, you stop guessing, you stop stressing, and you start recognizing love long before he ever speaks it. Because trust me, fellas show love way before they say love. A man does not fall in love in a single moment, nor does he express love the instant he feels it. His heart moves in quiet phases, each one building upon the last, forming a foundation stronger than anything he could ever put into simple words. Men are taught from childhood to be guarded, to be cautious, to protect their emotions like a vault. So the way he expresses love is not loud at first. It's subtle, it's tested, and it's paced. Understanding this becomes the key to recognizing true commitment long before he ever whispers the words "I love you." A man's journey toward emotional expression begins with a phase many people underestimate: curiosity. It is in curiosity where everything starts. A man who is interested does not simply look at you, he studies you. Not in a suspicious way, not to judge you, but to understand you. Men fall in love with the idea of who a woman is before they ever fall in love with her physically. He watches how you carry yourself, how you treat strangers, how you speak about your goals, and how you handle pressure. These are not accidental observations. These are intentional evaluations. Your energy, your presence, your tone, your habits. He absorbs all of it. Because in this stage, he is answering the question: is this someone I can connect with beyond the surface? He is measuring compatibility without ever announcing it. He is taking mental notes that help him decide whether to move closer or keep his distance. And when he sees qualities that feel genuine, steady, and interesting, that curiosity turns into attraction. Not just physical attraction, but emotional attraction. Something inside him starts to shift, even if he doesn't acknowledge it yet. This first stage may look simple, but it sets the tone for everything that comes after. Once that curiosity has taken root, the next shift happens almost automatically. He begins to invest. This is where a man's intentions start to reveal themselves in ways he cannot disguise. A man's time is the clearest indicator of his priorities. If he is giving you time consistently, it means you matter. If he is checking on you, listening to you, remembering the little things you say, trying to make your day easier, he is already stepping into the second stage without even saying it. Effort is not something men waste on people they see as temporary. A man does not invest in what he does not care about. The calls, the messages, the planning, the showing up. Those are not just gestures. Those are emotional breadcrumbs leading to something deeper. He invests because you've shown him something worth investing in. This stage is not about gifts or money. It's about presence. A man will put himself where his heart wants to grow. He will prioritize you without being asked. He will start choosing you in ways that are practical, visible, and consistent. And the more he feels his investment is reciprocated, the more he continues to give. This phase is fragile, though, because men are watching your response just as closely as you watch their effort. They're looking for steadiness, appreciation, and sincerity. They want to know that their time is valued, not exploited. When a man sees that his efforts create connection rather than pressure, he naturally steps deeper into emotional engagement. Then something important begins to happen inside him, something he rarely shows. As his investment grows, so does his emotional vulnerability. This is the part of the journey that most men guard with their entire soul. Vulnerability does not come easily to a man, not because he doesn't feel deeply, but because he feels deeply in silence. Society teaches men to be strong, unshakable, controlled. But real love requires a man to expose parts of himself he normally hides behind humor, pride, or toughness. In this phase, he begins opening doors within himself that he never opens casually. He starts talking about his fears, his childhood, his disappointments, his dreams, his insecurities. He may share past heartbreaks, financial worries, or things he's ashamed of. He reveals the parts of himself that are unpolished, imperfect, and human. This is the stage where he lets you into his world, not the world he shows everyone, but the world he protects. A man who begins to trust you with his vulnerability is already loving you in ways he hasn't admitted yet. Vulnerability is the emotional currency men spend only on the woman they see a future with. This stage is delicate. One wrong response can shut him down again. One moment of judgment, dismissal, or disregard can make him retreat emotionally for weeks or months. But when he sees that you respond with gentleness, understanding, and support, that vulnerability becomes the bridge to emotional safety. And once he feels emotionally safe, everything else follows naturally. A man who trusts you will begin planning with you in mind. He will imagine a life with you. He will daydream about what a future could look like. He will start making decisions that include you, even if he never says it out loud. This emotional progression leads to the moment where he is finally ready to express his truth. But even in this stage, men take their time. They do not say, "I love you," lightly or impulsively. It is not a phrase they toss out to keep you close or make you stay. When a man says those words, it means he has walked through every internal stage: curiosity, investment, vulnerability, trust, and emotional alignment. The words become the final confirmation of a journey he has already completed in his heart. And when he finally speaks it, he is speaking the most honest version of himself. A man's journey toward love is not random, rushed, or accidental. It is intentional in ways he rarely speaks about. When a man starts developing feelings for someone, he begins by observing long before he expresses anything. This first stage, the stage of curiosity, is where everything begins. He watches how you move in the world, how you talk about your values, how you treat people who cannot benefit you, and how you respond when things don't go your way. A man pays attention to energy before he pays attention to romance. He studies your consistency, your attitude, your emotional tone, and your authenticity. To him, these things matter more than appearance or charm. While you may think he is simply enjoying your company, in reality he is evaluating whether you represent someone he could ever allow into his life on a deeper level. Men open their hearts slowly because they have been taught not to trust easily. Even when they want love, they still protect themselves from the risk of choosing wrong. So during curiosity, he isn't looking for perfection. He's looking for traits that help him understand if you bring peace or complication, stability or chaos, honesty or game. And if something about your character makes him feel calm, intrigued, and steady, that is when he unconsciously steps into the second stage. The second stage is investment, and this is where a man's true intentions start coming out through his behavior. When a man wants you in his life, you will not have to guess it. He will make time for you even on busy days because to him time is the clearest expression of care. A man who is serious wants to hear your voice, check on your well-being, know what you're going through, and show up when it matters. He remembers the little things you say because he is not interacting with you out of boredom. He is interacting with purpose. His presence becomes intentional, not casual. He listens deeply, not superficially. He tries to understand your world, not just visit it. And while he may not say anything about love yet, his actions begin revealing where his heart is heading. Investment also shows up in the way he protects your energy. He avoids doing things that would hurt you, confuse you, or make you insecure. He wants you to feel safe, not anxious. Men who care adjust their behavior without even being asked. They naturally step up with effort, respect, consistency, and attentiveness because they see value in what you bring into their lives. A man who is investing is a man who is preparing to choose you, even if he hasn't admitted it aloud. But he is also watching something very important: how you receive his investment. Men may initiate effort, but it is reciprocation that keeps them moving forward. If he feels appreciated, respected, and seen, he becomes more emotionally available with each passing day. Then, slowly but surely, he begins to reach the stage he guards the most: vulnerability. This is the point where he allows you to see him as he truly is, not just who he pretends to be. Men are trained to hide their wounds, their fears, their insecurities, their struggles, and their emotional scars. Very few people ever get access to a man's internal world, so when he starts sharing things he usually keeps buried, that is a sign he trusts you on a level he does not trust most. Vulnerability is not dramatic or loud. It shows up in quiet conversations where he tells you about things that disappointed him, mistakes he made, dreams he hasn't told anyone, or fears he's ashamed of admitting. It shows up when he lets you see him on his bad days, when he's not confident or strong or perfect. Vulnerability is him taking off the armor he wears in front of everyone else. When he lets you see him without the mask, he is already loving you in ways he hasn't verbalized. During this stage, he also starts depending on your emotional presence, not in a clingy way, but in a human way. He values your support. He values your understanding. He values your empathy. And he forms a deeper emotional bond when he sees that you don't weaponize his vulnerability or use it against him. A man's heart opens when he feels safe. Safety is the doorway to emotional connection. The more he feels he can be honest with you, the more he begins imagining you as part of his long-term life. In his mind, vulnerability is not just about sharing. It is about choosing. It is about deciding that you are someone he can trust with both his strength and his weakness. Once he reaches emotional vulnerability, love is not far behind, but men do not rush to say, "I love you," even when they feel it. They wait until the feeling matches a sense of security. Men say, "I love you," when they feel the relationship is solid, mutual, stable, and free of emotional danger. They say it when they are sure you are not going anywhere. They say it when their actions have already been speaking it for weeks or months. They say it when they know those words will be respected, not taken for granted. They say it when their internal doubts have settled. By the time a man says, "I love you," he has already tested the connection, opened up his truth, evaluated your character, and confirmed that he can trust you with his heart. His love is deliberate because he does not want to regret the moment he becomes vulnerable with the wrong person. When he finally expresses those 3 words, it is not because he suddenly felt them. It is because he has been feeling them, nurturing them, and protecting them until he knew they were safe to give. A man's emotional progression toward love is often misunderstood because most of what he feels begins long before he ever speaks it. His heart is built in layers, and each layer must feel secure before he moves to the next. Most men won't say, "I love you," just because the moment feels romantic. They say it only after they've watched, tested, invested, and opened parts of themselves that they don't show to anyone else. The first stage begins with curiosity, but curiosity is deeper than simply noticing a woman. It's the internal spark that makes him pay attention to details, not just the surface. He observes how you treat others, how you react when things don't go your way, whether you carry humility or entitlement, and whether your presence brings peace or tension. This stage is silent but intentional. He is looking for compatibility, but he's also looking for inspiration. Men fall in love with women who inspire them to be better without even trying. He notices your emotional maturity, your ambition, your humor, your patience, and your resilience. He studies the way you talk about your goals, the way you carry yourself with dignity, and the way you handle challenges. Without saying a word, he is forming a picture in his mind of who you are, and whether his heart would be safe in your hands. As he grows more curious, something else starts to shift inside him. He begins to feel drawn to you, not in a temporary or superficial way, but in a way that makes him want to show up more. That leads him into the second stage, investment, the stage where his actions speak louder than any confession. A man invests with intention, not confusion. When he begins to care, he shows it through effort, presence, and consistency. He starts making time for you despite his schedule, rearranging things not out of obligation, but desire. A man's time is one of the most valuable assets he has, and if he gives it to you freely, it is because you have already taken a place in his mind and heart. Investment is not only about checking in or taking you out. It's about the attention he pays to your emotional world. He listens more carefully. He remembers things you say. He protects your feelings without being asked. He tries to make your life easier, lighter, more joyful. And importantly, he begins to share his world with you. His routines, his habits, his interests, his experiences. This is the stage where a man begins to weave you into the fabric of his everyday life in small but meaningful ways. Investment also shows up in the way he adjusts his behavior. If a man likes you, he tries not to disappoint you. He may not say it directly, but his actions reveal a desire to be dependable, to be someone you can trust. He becomes more careful with his words, more thoughtful with his decisions, because deep down he understands that effort is the currency of love. The more he invests, the more he begins to feel responsible for your emotional safety, and the more he feels that responsibility, the deeper he steps into the next stage. That next stage is vulnerability, the most pivotal part of a man's emotional evolution. Men are not taught to expose their weaknesses, they are taught to hide them. So when he begins opening up, when he starts sharing things he once kept locked away, it is never accidental. It is intentional, meaningful, and significant. Vulnerability for a man is not dramatic. It comes in small, raw moments, a confession about his fears, an admission of something painful from his past, a revelation about something he feels insecure about, or a dream he is scared to chase. When he lets you see the imperfect, unpolished parts of him, that is the moment he is choosing emotional connection over emotional protection. This is also the stage where he becomes more honest about his feelings and more transparent about his intentions. He may start telling you when he's stressed, when he's struggling, or when he feels misunderstood. He lets you see the emotional weight he carries, not because he wants to burden you, but because he trusts you enough to let you see what he hides from the rest of the world. A man who is vulnerable is already in love in his own way. Men do not open that door unless they believe the person in front of them will handle their heart with care. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the highest form of emotional courage. And when a man shows it, he is silently saying, I trust you with the truth of who I am. As he becomes more emotionally open, he begins to imagine a future with you, even if he doesn't verbalize it yet. He starts making plans that include you. He starts thinking long, term instead of day to day. He evaluates his life in relation to you, how you fit into his goals, his values, his dreams. This mental shift is subtle, but it is powerful. It means he has crossed the line from liking you to aligning with you. And once alignment forms, love is not far behind. But even when he feels love, most men still hold the words back until they feel safe. Love for a man is not just an emotion, it is a commitment, saying I love you means stepping into vulnerability, responsibility, and devotion. It means risking disappointment or rejection. It means letting someone see the tender parts of him. So he waits until the connection feels mutual, until your presence feels consistent, until your intentions feel genuine. He waits until he knows he is not offering love into uncertainty. By the time a man finally speaks those 3 words, he has already lived them internally. His curiosity, his investment, and his vulnerability have already built the foundation. The words simply confirm what his actions have been showing all along. A man's journey toward confessing love is a gradual unfolding, not an instant leap. Long before the words "I love you" come out of his mouth, he has already traveled through emotional stages that shape the way he connects, feels, and decides. These stages matter because they reveal his truth before he ever says a thing. Men are often quieter about their emotions, not because they don't feel deeply, but because they feel in a different rhythm. Slow, deliberate, observant. A man moves through love like someone testing the depth of water before jumping in. He checks the temperature, the current, the safety, the stability, and he does all of this through signs that show up in his behavior, his attention, and the subtle ways he begins integrating you into his world. One of the early stages is curiosity, and curiosity is not just light interest. This is where a man begins to truly notice you, not just how you look, but how you think, how you express yourself, how you make decisions. He watches how you treat waiters, how you talk to your friends, how you react when something small goes wrong. These cues matter to him because men don't fall in love with perfection. They fall in love with the real person behind the surface. A man needs to know if a woman is someone he can respect, someone he can trust, someone who brings not just excitement but balance into his life. So during this stage, he is taking mental snapshots of your character. He is looking to see whether your words match your actions. He is seeing whether you are consistent or unpredictable, whether your presence brings comfort or chaos. This stage is quiet but powerful because it determines whether he steps closer or steps back. If what he sees draws him closer, the next stage begins naturally: investment. This stage speaks louder than anything else he does. Men invest in what matters, and they withdraw from what doesn't. So if he begins giving you time, attention, effort, and presence, it is because you've already made an impact on him. His texts become more consistent, his presence more intentional. He wants to know how your day was, what you're feeling, what you need, and what you dream about. He remembers small details, not to impress you, but because they genuinely stay in his mind. A man invests emotionally by showing that he cares, and he invests physically by showing up. He begins planning with you in mind. He checks on you not out of obligation, but because he wants to. This stage is where a man's feelings become visible, even if he still doesn't say much. And during this phase, he watches how you treat his effort. A man moves deeper when his investment feels appreciated. He retreats when it feels ignored or taken for granted. Men don't need perfection, but they need reciprocity. Someone who sees their effort and responds with warmth instead of expectation. As he invests more, he begins opening up emotionally, and this marks a critical shift. Vulnerability is not easy for most men. It means letting down the guard, revealing flaws, admitting fears, expressing uncertainty. And because society conditions men to stay strong, many of them hide their emotional truths behind silence, humor, distraction, or toughness. But when he begins trusting you, those walls slowly come down. He starts sharing stories from his past, ones that shaped him, hurt him, taught him, or challenged him. He may talk about things he rarely discusses: family issues, career pressures, insecurities, regrets, or dreams he's afraid to chase. This is not just conversation, this is access. When a man lets you see the vulnerable side he hides from everyone else, it means you've reached a part of him that he doesn't open lightly. Vulnerability is the gateway to commitment. It means he feels emotionally safe. It means he sees you as someone he can trust with his truth. And when a man feels safe with a woman, his heart opens even more. During vulnerability, he also begins imagining what life with you could look like. This doesn't mean he rushes to talk about marriage or big commitments, but the thought enters his mind naturally. He begins to consider whether your lifestyle aligns with his. He thinks about how your values match, how your communication flows, how your presence affects his peace. Men think about the future quietly before they speak about it openly. And if he starts adjusting parts of his life to include you, scheduling around you, planning with you, thinking about you when making decisions, that is a sign he is already stepping into emotional commitment. But even when a man feels love, he doesn't say it right away. He waits until the environment around that love feels steady. Men fear emotional loss more than they admit. They fear offering love to someone who may not value it. They fear being vulnerable with someone who might walk away. So they hold those words close to their chest until they feel absolute certainty. A man says, "I love you," when he feels respected, understood, supported, and emotionally safe. He says it when he feels like he can be himself around you, his strong moments and his fragile ones. He says it when your presence feels like peace instead of pressure. He says it when he knows the love he is offering will be honored rather than questioned or doubted. By the time a man speaks those three words, he has already walked through every internal phase. He has already assessed your character, invested in your life, revealed his truth, and aligned his heart with yours. The words "I love you" are not the beginning for a man. They are the confirmation of everything he has already felt, processed, and decided in silence. A man's emotional journey toward saying "I love you" is rarely straightforward, yet it is consistent enough that when you understand it, everything he does becomes clearer. Men are often labeled as emotionally distant or slow to express their feelings, but the truth is they simply move differently through their emotions. They don't rush into vulnerability because vulnerability requires trust, and trust is something a man builds slowly, carefully, and with intention. Before a man ever allows those three words to leave his mouth, he has already gone through internal stages that tell him whether his heart will be safe. These stages shape his behavior, his choices, and the way he treats you long before he ever acknowledges what he's feeling. One of the most important stages is investment. When a man invests, he invests quietly at first, then gradually with more depth. Investment is not only about what he gives you, it's about what he stops giving to other things. He shifts his priorities, he adjusts his schedule, he becomes thoughtful about your emotional needs. He begins to protect your heart even before you've asked him to. A man invests his time more than anything because time is something he doesn't give away freely. If he chooses to spend time with you, talk to you often, understand your world, and consistently show up, that is his heart beginning to lean toward you. This investment is intentional because men don't open themselves to disappointment easily. They give effort only when they see something lasting. So every small action he takes, checking on you, making plans, listening, remembering details, is part of a larger emotional movement unfolding inside him. But investment alone doesn't bring a man to love. The real shift happens in the stage where he starts letting his guard down. Vulnerability is something men protect fiercely. To him, vulnerability means exposure, and exposure means risk. A man who begins to open up is a man who sees you as someone emotionally safe. He starts to tell you things he has kept quiet for years, stories of hurts he never healed from, fears he rarely admits, dreams he's embarrassed to share, pressures he hides behind his strength. This stage is delicate because he is waiting to see how you handle his truth. If you respond with judgment, coldness, or indifference, he will pull back. If you respond with understanding, empathy, and care, he will trust you more deeply than you realize. A man's vulnerability is one of the most sacred parts of his emotional process. When he lets you see his tears, his doubts, or the parts of himself he thinks are not good enough, it means he is letting you into a part of him that he doesn't show to anyone. That is love forming before the words ever come out. During this stage, his behavior changes in ways that reveal what he feels even if he isn't saying it. He begins to rely on you emotionally. He starts valuing your opinion in decisions. He seeks your comfort during stressful moments. He shares victories and disappointments alike. He begins to act like a partner even before calling himself one. He imagines life with you, thinks about the future differently, and starts making room for you in his long-term plans. A man who is emotionally vulnerable becomes more expressive, more attentive, and more emotionally present. He starts caring about the things that matter to you, aligning himself with your values, and respecting the things you stand for. All of this happens because he feels safe enough to build deeper emotional attachment. Another powerful sign that love is forming is the way he becomes protective, not in a controlling way, but in a caring, thoughtful manner. He wants you to feel secure around him. He checks that you got home safely. He worries when you're stressed or upset. He steps up when you need help. This protection is not possessiveness. It's emotional responsibility. A man who loves you internally sees your happiness and your safety as something he plays a role in. He doesn't see you as someone temporary. He sees you as someone he is responsible for emotionally. And this sense of responsibility is a key part of a man reaching the point where he is ready to say, I love you. He wants to know that he can provide stability, that he can be someone you can lean on, and that he is capable of being consistent. As his emotional attachment grows, he becomes more honest, not just about his feelings, but about his intentions. He may not explicitly say the words, I'm falling for you, but his actions reveal it. He becomes clearer with his communication. He becomes more transparent with where he stands. He stops entertaining other options. He becomes focused on building something real. Men express loyalty through behavior long before they express it through language. When you see this shift, it is a sign that the emotional walls inside him are breaking down and love is taking its place. At this point, the words I love you are already formed in his heart. They just haven't made it to his mouth yet. Men don't say these words lightly because the moment they say them, they feel accountable for them. To a man, I love you isn't just affection. It is commitment, vulnerability, and truth all combined into three powerful words. He wants to be sure that when he speaks them, they are protected. He wants to be sure that you are the person who will value what he's giving. He wants to be sure that the relationship is stable enough to hold the weight of those words. So even when he feels love, he might wait until he senses emotional safety, mutual trust, and genuine reciprocity. By the time he finally says it, his heart has already decided. The words become the final step, not the first. His love has been growing quietly through every investment, every vulnerable moment, every thoughtful action, and every emotional risk he took along the way. When a man is on the journey towards saying, I love you, there is a stage where he begins to align his actions with his deeper intentions, even before he consciously realizes what those intentions are. This phase is powerful because it reveals a man's emotional truth long before he speaks it out loud. At this point, he has already passed through uncertainty, curiosity, and emotional testing. Now he begins operating from instinct and desire rather than fear and hesitation. A man in this stage may not yet verbalize love, but everything inside him is preparing for that moment. His internal dialogue becomes stronger, his emotions become more serious, and his behavior becomes more consistent. Even though he might not tell you directly what he's feeling, you will see his care and connection showing up in subtle but meaningful ways. He begins to prioritize your peace, protect your feelings, and minimize actions that could create confusion or doubt. The man who is approaching the point of saying, "I love you," becomes more intentional in the way he speaks, reacts, and relates to you. He wants you to feel secure with him, even if he is still working through his own insecurities quietly. His love is forming in the shadows long before it appears in the light. During this stage, you will notice his desire to invest more deeply in the relationship. He doesn't just show up physically, he shows up mentally and emotionally. He makes time, not excuses. He makes effort, not apologies. He pays attention to the things you say without you having to repeat them. He remembers the details because the details matter to him. The more he connects with you, the more he sees potential in what you two could build together. A man never pours into a woman he does not see a future with. His investment is not an accident. It is a sign that his heart is moving. He becomes more protective of the bond you share. He wants to avoid misunderstandings and unnecessary conflict because he knows what he is feeling is real. Even though he may not fully express it yet, he knows he is stepping into unfamiliar territory, and he does not want to mess it up. His fear is no longer about vulnerability. It is about losing something that means something to him. That shift in fear is what reveals how deep his emotions are starting to run. You will also see him become more open about his world. A man preparing to love lets you into his space and his life. He shares the things he doesn't usually talk about with anyone else. He may start talking about his past, not to dwell on it, but to show you the journey that shaped him. He may let you see his weaknesses, his mistakes, and even the parts of himself he doesn't like. This is a sign of trust, because men protect their vulnerabilities until they feel safe enough to reveal them. When he starts speaking about his dreams, his struggles, and his fears, he is giving you access to his inner world. He is showing you the man behind the strength. When a man begins to treat you as a confidante instead of a companion, he is already emotionally invested, whether he says it or not. Letting you into his world is one of the final steps before he lets you into his heart. Not only does he open up emotionally, but he also becomes more responsible with the way he handles the relationship. He starts communicating more clearly, resolving issues faster, and being more mindful of your needs. This stage is when he becomes more accountable and thoughtful. He may even begin adjusting certain behaviors, not because you asked, but because he wants to be the kind of man who deserves you. When a man's love begins to grow, self-improvement follows naturally. He starts questioning his habits, his maturity, and his choices, realizing that loving someone requires more than charm. It requires consistency, effort, and integrity. This is when he evaluates himself and thinks, "Can I be the man she needs?" That internal question frequently appears right before a man decides to openly express love. The seriousness of his emotions makes him evaluate the seriousness of his actions. Another sign in this stage is the way he becomes more intentional with the future. He may not say, "I love you," yet, but he starts making plans that involve you. These plans do not have to be grand or dramatic. They simply reflect that he sees you beside him as time moves forward. He may casually talk about events months ahead, mention things he wants you to experience together, or discuss ideas that indirectly include you in his long-term picture. When a man begins to use we instead of me, even in subtle ways, it means he is preparing his heart for something deeper. He is mentally positioning you in his life before he verbally admits that his heart is attached. The shift from "I think" to "I think we should" is small but meaningful. It reveals that he no longer sees this as temporary or uncertain. His heart is already moving toward commitment, even if his words are not there yet. Finally, during this stage before he says "I love you," his behavior becomes more stable and predictable. A man who is falling in love becomes consistent because love is not chaotic for him. It is clarifying. He knows what he wants, and he knows who he wants. Fewer mixed signals appear because he no longer feels the need to hold back. His actions begin to match his emotions, and the closer he gets to the point of saying those 3 words, the more he acts like he has already said them. His gestures become softer, his tone becomes warmer, and his presence becomes more reassuring. Even if he is not expressive with words yet, his love is already present in the things he does. You will notice a calmness in him, a peace that comes from allowing his feelings to grow rather than fighting them. In this stage, the relationship moves with a natural, comforting rhythm. And though he may not have spoken the words aloud, everything in his behavior is quietly whispering them already.